Hello and welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Let's look into the first question. Consider the following statement. According to the law, life imprisonment means incarceration for a term not exceeding 14 years. When any person has been sentenced to punishment for an offence, the appropriate government may, at any time, without conditions or upon any conditions which the person sentenced accepts, suspend the execution of his sentence or remit the whole or any part of the punishment to which he has been sentenced. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer to this is 2 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to life imprisonment. Let us try and understand what are these options. When we speak about punishment, what is punishment? Punishment is basically making sure that an offender, the person who's committed a crime, is put behind bars. Added to it, there are different kinds of punishment. If you look into section 53 of the Indian Penal Code, there are different kinds of punishments. One, a person can be imposed with death penalty, a person can be imposed with life imprisonment, a person can also have imprisonment as well. This imprisonment can be further broken down into rigorous imprisonment and also simple imprisonment. Added to it, we can also have the forfeiture of the property and the person can also be imposed with fine. These are the different types of punishments that are present under the Indian Penal Code. What are we speaking about? We are speaking about life imprisonment, which also happens to be a form of punishment. So when we speak about life imprisonment, it basically means that person will remain in jail for the rest of his life. It means until he takes his last breath, he will be behind the bars and it is not 14 years. So according to the law, life imprisonment means incarceration for a term not exceeding 14 years is a wrong statement. So life imprisonment basically means for his entire life, if a person has been imposed with such penalty, he'll be there behind the prisons for the rest of his life. So the first option is wrong. When you look into the second option, yes, the government also has the power to make sure that if a person is imposed with life imprisonment, however, a person has reformed over a period of time, in such a case, the government has the power under section 432 of the CRPC with certain other procedural checks under 433A of the CRPC, they would be able to release this person if he has transformed in the jail. So when it comes to life imprisonment, remember it is for the entire lifetime, but yes, the government also has the power under section 432 of the CRPC with the procedural checks under 433A of the CRPC where they would be able to release this person after a considerable period of time. Also remember, the president has the power under Article 72 of the Indian Constitution where he has the power to pardon, commute or remit a sentence. Added to it, you have to put on the comment section under which article the governor has this power. Now let's look into the next practice question. With respect to Right to Information Act, which of the following statements are correct? RTI Act mandates every public authority to disclose information on a suo motu basis to public at regular intervals. If information sought concerns the life or liberty of a person, it shall be supplied within 4 weeks. The Act will not apply to the intelligence and security organizations under all circumstances. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is one only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to section 24 of the Right to Information Act. Let us try and understand what are these options. When we speak about the right to information, it basically has two important facets. What are those? One, let's say you want to get some information about a public authority. So what do? You file an application with the Right to Information Officer and you would be given the information. This is one facet of the right to information. You are asking for the information. On the other side, after a considerable period of time, the government authorities, the public authorities will also have to give out information on a suo motu basis on their own, on the voluntary basis. So the two facets include: one, you ask for the information from the public authority. On the other side, after a considerable period of time, the public authority on a suo motu basis will have to give the information. Where do we find the mention of it? We have it in section 4, where it clearly goes on to say the obligations of the public authorities. So as per section 4 of the right to information, on a suo motu basis, on a voluntary basis, after a considerable period of time, they should be able to give out the information about the activities of that particular department. So the first statement is right. When we look into the second statement, if information sought concerns the life or liberty of a person, it shall be supplied within 4 weeks. This is a wrong statement. Why? That is because if you look into section 7 of the Right to Information Act, it has 2 points here. One in the normal circumstances, one in the exceptional circumstances. When we speak about the normal circumstances, yes, the public authorities will have to give information as soon as possible, as expeditiously as possible, and if it is normal circumstances, it is within 30 days of the receipt of the request. However, if the information sought for concerns the life or liberty of a person, the same shall be provided within 48 hours, and it is not 4 weeks. So the second statement is wrong. When you look into the third statement, the act will not apply to intelligence and security organizations under all circumstances. This is a wrong statement. Why? Because yes, it does apply that when it comes to the intelligence and the security organizations, if people are asking information about certain agency like the research and analysis wing, or you're speaking about the intelligence bureau, or you're speaking about the CBI, in all these cases they may not give information about the activities that they perform. But if it is about human right violations, if it is about corruption, in that case they have to give the information. So it is not under all circumstances, but when it comes to corruption and human right violations, they have to give the information, which is what is given under section 24. Section 24 exempts certain intelligence and security organizations from the ambit of transparency law. However, when it comes to the human rights as well as corruption, they have to give information according to the right to information. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following statements with respect to Kondapalli Toys are correct? The toys are made of wood in Kondapalli in the state of Telangana. They have been granted the geographical indications tag. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 2 only. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to the Kondapalli Toys. When we speak about Kondapalli Toys, where are they made? They are made in the state of Andhra Pradesh and not in the state of Telangana, which is why the first statement is wrong. And yes, they have been granted the geographical indication tag. So the second statement is right. When we look into the facts, the toys are made of a special wood called as Tellapuniki from the forest of Kondapalli in the NTR district. The softness of the wood allows for easy carving, but it's sturdy enough to retain the detailing. The wood needs to be dry enough to make it lightweight and durable. The artisans were originally from Rajasthan. The features of the toy characters still show the influence, and the artisans live in Bommala colony. The families also make toys are referred to as Arya Kshatriyas, also known as Nakarshalu, who the local people say find mention in Brahmanda Purana, which happens to be an ancient text. The Bommala Koluvulu, also known as Kollu dolls, are displayed during Sankranti, Dasara as well as Deepavali. These are the important facts from the preliminary examination point of view. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements with respect to Amicus Curiae. The decision whether to admit the information given by the Amicus Curiae lies with the discretion of the court. Amicus Curiae can be appointed in both civil and the criminal cases. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer to this is both. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to the Amicus Curiae. Who is this Amicus Curiae? Basically, if this happens to be a Latin phrase, and if it is translated into English, this happens to be friend of the court. So someone who is not party to that particular case, but on a discretionary basis, on the discretion of the court, an advocate who has a legal expertise is appointed by the court of law. He volunteers to offer information on a particular point of law or some other aspect of the case where he is assisting the court of law is called as an Amicus Curiae. So remember, an Amicus Curiae is a person appointed by the court of law, and this discretion is given to the court of law. And do note, whenever an Amicus Curiae is appointed by the court of law, he does speak to a couple of people. He also gets his viewpoint and he presents it it to the court of law as well, and it is the discretion of the court of law once again whether to accept this information or not. So he is appointed by the court on the discretion of the court, and when he gives his viewpoints, gives his report, whether it has to be accepted or not, whether this information has to be admitted or not, will again depend on the court. So the first statement is right. When you look into the second statement, yes, Amicus Curiae can be appointed in both civil and the criminal cases. Supreme Court has defined the term Amicus Curiae in the following words: if a petition is received from the jail or in any other criminal matter, if the accused is unpresented, then an advocate is appointed as Amicus Curiae by the court to defend and argue the case of the accused. So he can take up the criminal cases as well if the court so appoints, and in civil matters also the court can appoint an advocate as Amicus Curiae if it thinks it is necessary in case of an unprecedented party. The court can also appoint Amicus Curiae in any matter of general public importance or in which the interest of the public at large is involved. So we have three important aspects. One is the criminal matter, he can take it up. Civil matter, he can be part of it, and at the same time, if the court feels that he has to look into one of the important issues of general public importance, even there the court can appoint an Amicus Curiae. So the information that is given by the Amicus Curiae to the court may be accepted, may not be accepted, and it is the discretion of the court. Now let's look into the next question. This is just an update from the yesterday's question. We had given you a question: which of the following statements with respect to Pradhana Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana are incorrect? And the answer that I had told you was B. Sorry for this inconvenience. There have been rules that have been changed by the Government of India, but this notification says that as per the new rules made by the Government of India, it is now not mandatory even for the lonely farmers, and it is optional. So the answer to this would be both, because it is asking for the incorrect statement. So PMFBY is optional both for the lonely farmers as well as the non-lonely farmers. So please make the change. Now let's look into the next practice question. With reference to the United Nations General Assembly, consider the following statement. The UN General Assembly can grant observer status in the non-member states. Intergovernmental organizations can seek observer status in the UN General Assembly. Permanent observers in the UN General Assembly can maintain missions at the UN headquarters. Which of the statements given above are correct? The answer to this is 1, 2, and 3. This happens to be a previous year question from the year 2022. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion is Porcupine strategy. Let us try and understand what is this Porcupine doctrine or the Porcupine strategy all about. The Porcupine Doctrine, which was proposed in 2008 by US Naval War College research professor William S. Murray, is a strategy of asymmetric warfare focused on fortifying a weak state defenses to exploit the enemy's weaknesses rather than taking on the strengths. This basically is currently speaking about the issue between China as well as Taiwan. We know for the fact Taiwan happens to be a weak state and China happens to be a strong state. Why? Because it has a huge military power, it has the naval force, air force, and everything. So in the present situation, can Taiwan take on China? So the article currently goes on to say that in the conventional warfare, Taiwan would not be able to take on China, which is why they have given us an alternative strategy, which is called as the Porcupine strategy. What is this Porcupine strategy? Let's say we have a country. This country has been buying, let's say, traditional equipment like the tanks, or let's say the warships, or let's say, for example, the naval vessels as well. In that particular case, let's say China would be able to see what is happening on the other side. It would also be able to destroy them as well. So here the author goes on to say that we have to use what is called as the Porcupine strategy. A Porcupine strategy is where we are making use of the concealed weapons. Instead of using tanks, warships, and naval vessels, what we are making use of is the concealed weapons like the portable javelin or the Stinger missile systems, or we are making use of the cyber warfare, so on and so forth, so that we take the time, we weaken the opposition, and ultimately we prolong the war, so that this strong state is able to spend a lot of money and these people are able to defend it, and over a period of time making China to think whether this particular war is actually required. So on one side, China, which happens to be a strong country, will be spending a lot of money And on the other side, you have Taiwan, which happens to be a weaker state. Control stops them by using other guerrilla warfare techniques and ultimately makes China to withdraw from this war is what is called as the Porcupine strategy. When we speak about the Porcupine strategy, it has different layers to it. One is what is called as the outer layer, which is about intelligence and reconnaissance to ensure defense forces are fully prepared. So this is where they make use of the guerrilla warfare. This is where the defense troops are adequately equipped and prepared. This is where there is intelligence and intelligence gathering. This makes the weaker country to get all the information about the stronger country. The innermost layer relies on the geography and demography of the island. The ultimate objective of this doctrine is that of surviving and assimilating an aerial offensive well enough to organize a wall of fire that will prevent the Chinese People's Liberation Army from successfully invading. What is the need of this particular strategy? As of now, we know for the fact that China enjoys superiority over Taiwan in the conventional warfare. Since they cannot take upon China on the conventional warfare front, that is why we have to make use of this strategy. There are certain challenges as well. What are these challenges? When it comes to Taiwan, they have been focusing extremely on the traditional warfare. So when we are speaking about traditional warfare, they have continued to invest on the tanks, they've continued to invest on the traditional equipments, but they have failed to invest on the modern equipments. Analysts also go on to say that Taiwan's military leaders have been resisting steps to adopt a more asymmetric warfare, and as a result, Taiwan may also face issues as well. This is where United States of America can support Taiwan indirectly, similar to how NATO supported Ukraine during the war against Russia. Is what is this article all about? It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. This is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.